In a world that screams louder every day, the quietest man often becomes the most powerful. Have you ever noticed? The ones who speak the least often hold the deepest truths. This isn't just about silence, it's about reclaiming control in a world addicted to reaction. The more you explain yourself, the weaker you appear. The more you react, the more power you hand over. And the harder you try to prove your worth, the more obvious it becomes. Someone got under your skin. Let's be honest. In a world that thrives on noise, silence isn't passivity, it's strategy. When your words are twisted, when truth is weaponized, and when your reactions are turned into someone's entertainment, this isn't a conversation anymore. It's a psychological trap, and the louder you get, the more you've already lost. But here's the Stoic twist. You don't need to fight back. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to defend yourself to be right. You only need two things: silence and time. Because the moment you go quiet, karma begins its work. You fall silent, but the universe doesn't. Truth has gravity, and no matter how far it drifts, it always finds its way home. In this video, we'll uncover 7 specific moments where a wise man chooses absolute silence, not out of fear, but from inner strength, to protect his energy, to preserve his dignity, and to let the weight of others' actions crumble without ever raising a single finger. Because silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of self-control. 1. When you're lied about. Few things cut deeper than being falsely accused. Your instinct screams, defend yourself, fix the story, shout the truth. But the harder you chase clarity, the more chaos you invite. Why? Because liars don't want facts, they want your reaction. They want to see you flinch, crumble, perform your innocence, so they can spin that into guilt. And that's the trap. The more you speak, the more they twist. The more you plead, the more you look guilty. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it's not true, don't say it. If it's not right, don't do it." And that's enough. You don't owe a liar your voice. Let me tell you about James. He was accused of something at work completely false. People distanced themselves, whispers filled the air. But James didn't argue. He didn't defend. He stayed silent and consistent. Weeks later, the truth surfaced. His accuser was exposed. James? Untouched, dignified, and above it all. That's Stoic silence. Truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time. 2. When you're betrayed. Betrayal doesn't just sting at shatters. It comes from those closest. Friends, lovers, even family. And the urge is overwhelming. Confront them. Demand an answer. Scream. Why? But here's what no one wants to hear. People who betray you have already justified it. Or worse, they don't care. The more you plead for closure, the more you reopen the wound. Betrayers don't want clarity. They want your pain, your energy, your attention. So what do you give them? Nothing. No tears, no confrontation, no parting speech. Just silence. Let me tell you about Sarah. She found out her best friend of 10 years had betrayed her, revealed secrets, sabotaged her success. Her first urge? Confrontation. But instead, she chose silence. A quiet exit. No chaos. No shouting. And that silence? It haunted the friend more than any words ever could. Because silence echoes. And betrayal doesn't deserve a stage, it deserves absence. 3. When you're insulted. Insults are cheap. That's why the weak use them. Sarcasm, jabs, passive aggression, they're not seeking truth. They're begging for attention. And your reaction? That's their trophy. Snap back, and you hand them your piece. Argue, and you enter their game. But a Stoic doesn't play games. A Stoic observes, breathes, waits. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Let me tell you about David. He got promoted. At the celebration, A coworker sneered. "I guess they're giving promotions to anyone now." Everyone waited for his comeback, but David didn't speak. He smiled and said nothing. That silence? It thundered. He didn't just win the moment, won the war. Silence disarms. And nothing frustrates an insulter more than being ignored. 4. When they play the victim. Some people don't want resolution. They want control. They'll twist facts, cry on cue, and suddenly you're the villain in their play. Try to explain yourself? You look like the aggressor. This isn't an argument, it's a performance. Epictetus warned. To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate. Let me tell you about Rachel. Her coworker twisted every situation, played the victim masterfully. Rachel tried reason, evidence, logic. But in the court of emotion, logic loses. So Rachel stopped. No more defending. Just calm silence. And slowly, people saw through the act. Silence doesn't just end, dramate exposes it. 5. When you're taken for granted. Sometimes, the deepest pain comes not from betrayal, but from neglect. You give. You show up. You care. And in return, indifference. The bitter truth, the more available you are, the less you're valued. But here's where Stoicism restores your worth. Seneca said, "Time discovers truth." And sometimes, that truth is your absence. Jake was that guy, reliable, loyal, present. But no one noticed until he stopped showing up. And that silence, it revealed everything. If your presence is invisible, let your absence be unforgettable. 6. When you're provoked. Some people poke you not because they're brave, but because it's the only way they feel in control. They want a reaction. And the moment you flinch, they win. But Stoicism teaches, you don't control what they say. You only control how you respond or don't. Let me tell you about Adam. His coworker was a master at provocation, subtle insults in every meeting. One day, Adam changed the game. No eye roll, no sigh, no words, just a calm nod and silence. And that broke the cycle, because without reaction, the fire had no fuel. 7. When they regret losing you. Regret is loud, but silence is louder. They didn't see your value when you were there. Now they realize what they lost. Don't rush to explain. Don't run back to comfort their guilt. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Let me tell you about Olivia. She gave her all, and he took it for granted. Until one day, she left. Quietly, calmly. He begged, promised change. But Olivia had already healed in silence. That silence? It was her freedom. Final thoughts. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to fight to win. And you don't need to speak to make a statement. Silence, in a noisy world, is power. It's not weakness. It's not surrender. It's the language of those who no longer seek approval, only peace. So the next time they lie, provoke, betray, or regret, respond. Don't explain. Don't perform. Just watch and wait. Because karma doesn't need your help, only your silence.